So now it's time to ask you to join me in welcoming both Brittany Cooper and our 2015 Angelides lecturer, Ava DuVernay. Please welcome them.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can y'all hear me? So this is my pleasure. Um, Anyone who knows me knows I stand for Ava DuVernay. So we're gonna talk. We're gonna talk, and then you're gonna talk. Is that cool? All right. So first, you took a really unconventional pathway into filmmaking. Not formally trained as a filmmaker, but a journalist and then a publicist. And so I guess the thing that I want to know about that is what inspired you to want to become a filmmaker?
I'm setting this up so I can see you, but also see them.
Okay.
Because I feel like.
That's right. That's right. Yes, it's perfectly fine. So was this a thing where you were like, you know, what inspired you to want to become a filmmaker? And one of the things I'm thinking about is Toni Morrison famously said, if the books we want to read don't exist, then we must write them. So was it so what is there is it was it that there were films you wanted to see that you didn't see being made, or that you had a particular story you wanted to tell? What inspired you to really take this particular path?
Well, you're so beautiful. Your skin is perfect. You're fantastic. Your hair, the
I
eyes,
was gonna be on
the
stage
eyebrows
with you.
are on fleek. It's all working right now.
Right.
And I'm just, every time I walk in a room, I'm always shocked that people are here. So I just thank you all for coming. It's really cool. Um, No, it really wasn't that. I feel the Morrison quote is so, it definitely resonates, but that wasn't what was propelling me early on. It was just really a desire to tell stories. And it wasn't so much that I didn't see stories that I wanted to, stories that resonated with me, because I certainly did. I love all kinds of films, so I'll watch, you know, a film from the Ukraine and be riveted. It wasn't that I was responding to an absence. It was just, I had my own stories to tell. And so, and I had been working so much in an industry where I was helping other filmmakers have their stories amplified and told. That was my job. That a lot of times, to be honest, I'd be around some of these filmmakers, some of my white male counterparts,
Yes.
and I would think, "Wow, you're the director. You, this must not be that hard."
Word.
And just there's some people where you're just kind of, that getting to know them demystified the process for me, because I didn't go to film school and I don't have a formal training in film, and I taught myself, and it was from being on sets with directors, some really great directors and some not so great directors, and what I learned are the things that I want to do and really the things that I don't want to do. And so that was an education as well. And so really it was just responding to stories that I had to tell, but also feeling very confident in the fact that this wasn't brain surgery, this wasn't, rocket science, that it was possible for me to do because I had seen other people doing it, and had proximity to filmmakers. And so
I love that. And what I love most is you're so confident. You're confident as hell. And and so we work in women's and gender studies here, and we're always trying to help young women garner confidence. And so I'm just wondering, how do you, are there particular places that you attribute that kind of confidence, that fundamental belief that the stories you have to tell are important, and that you could figure out how to do that and do it so masterfully?
I appreciate it. I don't think I ever thought that the films stories I want to tell were important. I just wanted to tell them. I didn't have any elevated sense of what the stories, were or what they could do. I just knew there was something in me that I wanted to express. That the fact that people are responding to it is really the cherry on top. Something that I never really factored into that process. And I think, when I talk about, I think part of some of the confidence that comes from filmmaking is that I was around it in another way. as a publicist, as kind of, a tangential, like a crew member. Someone who people don't treat incredibly well in the industry. Nobody but wants to see the publicist coming. The publicist is not, the warm and fuzzy person on the crew. And so just immersing myself in film in a way that wasn't the center. A lot of times the director is the center, the actor is the center, but being someone kind of on the margins of it, I think gave me a different perspective, and just allows me to operate in a bit of a different way because I don't have any fear of not being the center. You know what I mean? Like I could easily go back to doing what I did or do something else. My whole livelihood and worth isn't based on being a director. And it isn't based on making a certain kind of film. So when I go into a studio meeting or I'm dealing with an executive or an agent, I don't feel like everything's hanging in the balance on that job. You know what I mean? So I think that might be what people see as confidence, but really I think it's just experience.
Wow. Wow. One of the things that I was surprised to find is that so your first documentary, you have many films, and you have these documentary films. So we started paying attention to you at the Crunk Feminist Collective with My Mic Sounds Nice, which we love. And so Rachel Ramus, who is our filmmaker at the CFC, wrote this piece about it. But before that, you have This Is the Life, which I recently watched. And
You did?
I did watch it.
Oh my gosh.
Netflix is
Where
great.
did you find it? Oh,
I-
Netflix?
yes, I found it on Netflix, and I learned that you used to be an MC, and you were nice on the mic.
I was nice on the mic.
She was nice.
I was
on the
actually
mic.
really nice on the mic.
So I wonder, does that hip hop ethos or aesthetic influence your work now? Your grind? Is it a part of you in a particular way now?
I mean, I think so. Anyone that grew up in, at that time it was the golden age of hip hop, the 90s. Everything was fantastic. I mean, it was the time. I'm sorry, it really was. And but it was a time in so many ways beyond hip hop culture. I mean, just you look at it was the golden age of television. It was the golden age of modern rock and roll. There was so much going on of film. That it was just a great, robust time for art making and the way that it was affecting culture. And so that was certainly a great time to just be experimenting as an artist, as a young person. It was the first time that I was interacting with art as an art maker. I grew up in Compton. Not a lot of, now I can look back and say, oh, my mother's work in her kitchen was art. Oh, the way that my grandmother crochets is art. But in that moment, kind of monetized art and public art was not anything that I was really exposed to beyond films at my local movie theater. And so to be 19 in South Central, at this health food store called The Good Life, like being an artist and around like-minded young people at that time, like that's all still in me. And I think that's why I'm so into kind of the idea of Together We Are Strong and collaboratives and community and folks coming together, because the first time that I was making art, it was in a collective. And so, whether it's a firm or whether it's, any of the other organizations that I'm down with and I'm really passionate about, I just never, I never learned about art from a individual place. You know what I mean? It was always about the sharing of it and the back and forth of it. And so I think that definitely influences me now.
Love that. And so
That's what a director is.
right.
I mean, I can't make a movie by myself.
Right.
Right.
That's
So,
the thing I was thinking about. Is that in your movie? So one of the things that everybody who found out that I was going to be talking to you said, we really have one key question: how does she make us look so gorgeous in these movies? That's the thing, right? Yes. No, really. It's it's like it's a healing kind of thing. You watch your films. When we snuck out of a major conference, we snuck out of the National Women's Studies Association conference to go see I Will Follow when it debuted in Atlanta in 2011. And and we just sat riveted by the way that we were lit, and there was a real appreciation. And so so I've heard you talk about this a little bit, but can you tell us a little bit about how you think about making us show up on screen so beautifully?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the intention to do so. Too many people don't intend to make us look good on screen. We're just there, and we're tangential to the main action because we're the supporting character who's going to die in a couple minutes. So, and so let's just get this and let's keep going. I think, it's really, it's just about some key principles of cinematography. I mean, when um, have two people in a scene that you're lighting, you light for the star. They're in the same place, so they have to have the same lighting. So you light for the central character who, 90% of the time is the white character. So that white person's light is not as attractive on our skin. And so we look, a very technical cinematic term called ashy. And
Word.
if you understand what I mean. And so, you know what I mean? Or we're falling, or it's harsh. It's just not quite right. And so, in our films, since black people are centered, we take care to make sure that there's light that is conducive to their skin, and then also just playing with a lot of things. Like I always talk about this idea of in middle of nowhere, there are scenes when the main character walks into her home, a darkly lit room at night. It's not even darkly lit. It's just I walk into my house at night and the lights aren't on. What does that look like? So that's something that my cinematographer and I, Bradford Young, the genius, always talk about is the reality of what we look like in dark spaces. In Selma, there's a scene, if you've seen it, where David Oyelowo and Coleman Domingo, who are Dr. King and Ralph Abernathy, are sitting in a dark jail cell. And, there's no beauty light coming in. Those brothers are dark, and it's a dark jail cell, and you need to know what it felt like to be in a dank, deep South jail cell, put in there by Sheriff Jim Clark, like in 1965. What did that feel like? It doesn't feel like pretty light coming through the window. It feels harsh, it feels dank, it feels dire. And so how do you construct that so that you actually are getting some emotion from the narrative and and the image? And so those are just all considerations. Like I said, it's intent, and it has to be something that you're striving for when you set foot on your set. And I don't blame even black filmmakers for not taking the time with it or not massaging those images, because so often just getting to the set is just an act of survival. Like it's such a we're here, let's go, let's get it, that it does take some exercise to say, okay, we are here, let's breathe, and let's really think about the image. And that's in a long legacy of filmmakers, Haile Garima, Charles Burnett, Julie Dash, who've done that. And so we just try to continue that legacy.
Oh, thank you. You've said a lot there. And so a couple of things. One is that, so you sort of shifted from the lighting to the kind of thing you want us to feel, which I think is pretty cool. And so when I watch the films, what's clear to me is that you actually believe that black folks have interior lives, right? So people are thinking, they're feeling things. And so you don't overcompensate for that with lots of words. Sometimes you'll do more with silence than many other people do with words. Is that intentional, that attempt to, that putting black interiority on the screen?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just black people thinking. This is all we're trying to do. It's silly and funny to think that that's a radical idea and that we don't see enough of it, I mean, but I think in film in general, we don't see a lot of, interior work, across the board, American film. It's just like, you got to keep it moving because, the belief is that we don't all have the attention span to sit and, travel through the emotions of someone that we're watching on screen. They have to be acting, not emoting. And so I think it's just a different approach to it. But certainly for black folk, it's radical only in the fact that there's just not enough of it happening. It's rare.
That's right. So you also mentioned Julie Dash. So I was thinking about, like, one of the reasons we've been so excited, it was like a telephone reaction where they were like, there's a new black woman film director on the block, because there are just so few. And so as you said recently, you're carving your own path, but do you find that Julie Dash or Cassie Lemons or even folks like Dee Rees, who did Pariah, are inspiration, or that you are in conversation with them? How do you see yourself in relationship to other black women film directors?
Yeah, that quote, it taken out of context, sounds a little weird. I mean, it was in answer to a question about the Oscar hoopla and the awards stuff and the Golden Globe stuff and all of that, where there's no one I can say, oh, what did she wear? Like just the basics. Like, how am I supposed? What do I dress? What do I wear? What did she wear to that, or how did she handle that, or whatever? Just because in that realm of the whole circus, there was no one who had done it before. Right. And so, I mean, literally, I didn't even know who to call to figure out does the studio pay for the clothes? Do I have to pay for my own gown? Like, I don't have no money for this. Like, how does this work? Who do I call? There was no one, there was no other sister to call in that capacity. But from, creatively, of course, many, many women, I walk in their footsteps. I stand on their shoulders of Esmond Palsy and Casey Lemons and Julie Dash and Nima Barnett and Ayoka Chinzira and Cheryl Denier and, I mean, many, many. And so yeah, I mean, creative footsteps and professional footsteps, that's where I'm finding the veering off point. Women who have made a film of a certain size, in a studio environment, a certain type of film that's has a certain trajectory. I'm finding that there weren't a lot of women of color, period, to talk to in that space. And so that's where I felt like, who do I call here? But I just cobbled together my own dream team of people. Oprah Winfrey.
Yes. Woo.
She was able to tell me some things.
Yes.
Drop some
That's a
knowledge
great dream
on
team.
the hourly.
She's a dream team all by herself.
Dream team all by herself. Debbie Allen as
Yes.
a director, just the actual directorial work, beyond what the work does. I think that's where it became a little, wait, where am I for me over the last couple of months, is because it's not about the work itself. Many people to speak with, many people to lean on, rely on, get advice from, ask questions. It was just the glitz side of it that was different. I mean, even it wasn't even black women filmmakers, like women filmmakers. Like, I would have to ask Catherine Bigelow questions, and she was like, yeah, that one time I did it. You know what I mean? Like, she was fantastic, but it's really, you can count on one hand. I don't know Sofia Coppola, Catherine Bigelow. Like, there's 3 or 4 that have been in that space. And so that's where I hope, I look forward to the next sister to come up, because I'm going to be like, yo, I got some things to tell you.
That's right.
That's
That's
I
right.
can share.
That's right. Yeah. So I want to talk about, so things have changed a lot in the last few months. But I want to talk about Selma a little bit. But specifically, before we talk about Selma, so I found all of your films to be really political, not because they're like rah-rah black power films, but because you're dealing with things that are politically important, like the prison industrial complex in middle of nowhere and how it shows up in intimate space. And so, do you see yourself as a very political filmmaker? This is always like a question with artists, that black artists don't seem to have the freedom to not be political. And so how do you navigate that? Because it seems, particularly on the heels of Selma, to come with a lot of pressure to get it right, tell our stories right, represent us right. How do you stay true to the thing you want to do in those spaces with all that pressure to be political?
Great question. I don't feel pressure to be political. I mean, I had said, I was on at this Women in the World Summit just the other night, and it was a question similar, and I'd never had it before, and I said something, but that I do believe. Sometimes you say something, you're like, what? But I believe this one. No, but I think, women making film is a radical act in and of itself.
Yes.
And so, I can make a romantic comedy, or I can make Selma. Just the fact that I'm making film, and I feel the same way about black filmmakers. I mean, we, our absence is so loud that when we do make something, there's 2 independent films that come out today. There's a film called Brotherly Love, and there's black independent films, and there's a film called Blackbird. And these are films, small films that, are not supported by, traditional studio system that, these filmmakers, 2 black men filmmakers made, at high cost to them, and they're very different, and it's kind of like watching them and trying to help them survive and just live and breathe. And that's the world that we live in as filmmakers. You work on something for 2 years, you give it everything, and then you've got to, struggle to, it's on life support the minute that it hits. And so I think, just like I said, the very act of and their films are not political in the traditional terms, but they are because they exist.
That's right.
And so I think for me, I don't feel any pressure. I feel like I could go do Scandal, or I could do Selma.
You did Scandal.
I feel like I
It was
can
great.
do a fashion film for Prada, and I can
Yes.
do a documentary on Venus, and I can do this TV show for CBS. People were like, don't do TV after Selma. I was like, why? It's the story. I like it. I'm just going to do it. So I'm just trying to stay out of those boxes and, follow my heart in terms of the stories that appeal to me.
I was going to ask you that. Do you think moving from the like indie filmmaker thing, because it's always this authenticity, right? It's like underground hip hop,
Then I got a record deal. Now people are looking at me with side eye.
That's right. That's right. Like you're going mainstream. Is it gonna be real as it ever was? Right. So how do you stay true to your do you feel the pressure to do that, or is it like, look, I got resources and I can really do
But
my
I really
thing?
don't have resources. I really don't.
Well, when did we get resources?
I know that's the thing. I really don't have resources. The smoke and mirrors of whatever people think they see. It's not true wealth, true resources in the way that people would think it is. To the point where we can finance and distribute and sustain a movement of film, a cinematic movement. So yeah, but yeah, am I scraping up $2 to make a picture? No. Maybe I'm scraping up a little bit more, but I'm still scraping. And so I think it's important, because I think a lot of times, especially with the whole Hollywood of it all, that you start to, because it's very seductive to just start to separate yourself from where you were, and to fool yourself into the fact that fool yourself with the feeling of it being easier when it's really the same. You just got better clothes. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's really the same. You just might be invited to that party that you weren't before. But truly, filmmaker, Tim Story, who directed, huge blockbuster superhero films for Fox, Fantastic Four, I think, those films. Is it Fantastic Four? I think one of those. Anybody know? Some blockbuster film he directed. Really, really amazing. The first black filmmaker to be playing with that much money and have that much studio resources. Then I did an interview with him for our podcast that Affirm runs, my black film distribution company. And he was talking about the fact that, when it was all said and done, he was looking around and that, once Fox didn't give him another film, then what's next? And so he has to pivot and now do these Think Like a Man films, which are very popular, and I like them, but they're much different. And so he found himself, a man without a film. And so it's really, in the filmmaking world, if you're not independent and autonomous and self-generating, you're at the whim of the industry based on what they want to give you and what they don't want to give you, truly. And so in that sense, I want to always remain independent, because I cannot be waiting on someone to say, you deserve this, or we think you can do this, or now's your turn to do this.
Right.
Hell no.
Right. Hell no.
That's horrible.
So I want to talk about Selma, which just thank you for Selma. It's a masterful film. So one of the things that was just shocking, so there's this opening moment where there are 4 little girls going down. There are 5 little girls, and it's the story of the 4 little girls going downstairs, being bombed in Birmingham, and they're talking about hair. They're talking about hair, and for me, that what struck me as I watched it for the first time was that there are very few instances of little black girls talking to each other on screen. Why did you start a film about Selma in Birmingham in '64 when Selma's 65?
Right. When Selma is 65 in Selma, and I started in '64 in Birmingham.
Yeah.
Why? Right?
Yeah.
Well, I was told when I came in that at this point I was supposed to cue. Am I? I'm supposed to cue the trailer?
Okay, let's see the trailer.
So yeah, in answer to the question, when I got the script, it's interesting because this is one of the first talks I've had about Selma since all that.
Drama.
All of the awards stuff, and on that campaign, there's certain things you can say and certain things you can't say. But now it's over, so I can say what I want to say.
Say it. Let's do it.
Right.
Right.
But no, during that time, when I got the script, there were no women. When I got the script, there were issues and things that I didn't feel I wanted to say as a filmmaker. So I rewrote it, and one of the first order of business was trying to figure out how to put people in the place of the true state-sanctioned and sponsored and executed terrorism of the Deep South of the 60s. And so I had felt a real distance from civil rights films that I felt in the past, that I've seen in the past, because I felt like they didn't really deal with the violence. It was a violent era. It was a violent era. And so in all of the research, when you talk to any of the freedom fighters who are still living, or you read their work, we know that the four little girls, the Birmingham church bombing, was just a seminal event in the movement. It radicalized some, it distanced some from some of the leaders from each other. It was just a point of no return for them. And so I felt like that, even though we were stepping outside of Selma and outside of the year and the 3 months we were focused on, it was imperative that we use that moment to be true to what it was for them, but then also to really let the audience know, we're not making what you think you walked into, or what you think this would be. This is going to be approached in a different way as filmmakers. And so in doing that, I had to really think about how we wanted to treat the four little girls. And so I actually called my mother, who was born in 1954, and I asked her, because she was around their same age, what did little girls talk about, little black girls talk about in 1954? And she was like, that's a stupid question. She was like, no, she never calls me, but she was like, well, that's silly. They talked about whatever little girls talk about now. And I was like, I don't know, some 11-year-olds now be talking about some stuff y'all didn't talk about. Like, what did you all actually talk about? And so, I asked her how they regarded Mrs. King at that time, and she had talked about them like she was their Beyonce. You know what I mean? She was just the most beautiful thing. Her and Diana Ross, the most beautiful thing they'd ever seen. And so she was talking to me about, she was just emoting about trying to take herself back to what they thought. And all she kept focusing on was her hair. How she just had the best hair. And I was like, well, of course, we all, ad nauseum for centuries and decades, talk about our hair. So that would be what the conversation was. And then I just became very emotional as you think about these 5 little girls walking down, talking about that, and, very purposefully letting the bomb go off in mid-sentence, because that really is, demonstrated the way that their lives were snuffed out, in midstream. And so, in making film, every single frame, and the way that I make it, every single frame, every single line is constructed to elicit emotion from you, to bring you and draw you into the narrative in a way that's on a heart level. And so those first scenes, that first scene was definitely all purposeful. Each and every head turn, each and every what they were wearing, how the clothes fly through the air, all of that was very purposeful.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Thank you.
So I love that. I got that there was this intentionality around making sure that when we told this story, that we also talked about the women who made it possible, both the women who sacrificed their lives through these acts of violence, but also who cooked, who strategized. And yet when Selma debuted, you got some pushback from the community around wanting more from characters like Diane Nash. We won't talk about the folks who wanted LBJ to be the star, because they don't matter.
They really don't.
But a lot of our people wanted even more, and I was defensive for you, because I was like, well, she has given us so much. But I wonder what your thoughts are.
Well, I want to thank you for riding for me on Facebook. I saw some things. I was like, dang, I'm glad I got Brittany in my corner, because she was throwing bows. Like, whoa!
Don't come for my people.
Really. But I think, what I couldn't say at that time, which is what I can say now, is there were no women. That script was nothing like what you see. There's someone's name on that script, which is a painful thing. But, that script was in no way close. It was a page 1 rewrite. So it was about trying to work within a studio paradigm with a gentleman's script, older gentleman's script from England, trying to bring some Black magnificence and excellence and intention and nuance into that within a space that is not built for us. I mean, I work in industry, that regards Birth of a Nation as a seminal work. You know what I mean? It is a constant struggle to insert us there. And so it does hurt to hear, but what you did is not enough. I felt like I could say, if only you knew what it was and what was done. And like you can't say that at the time. So I hear it. I mean, if it was my $20 million, it would have been much different. But ultimately, it was my final vision of what I could do within the context of what I had to work with. And I'm proud of it, and I was able to get a lot in. But I mean, you know, Richie Jean Jackson is a real woman, the woman whose kitchen they enter. Diane Nash, she should have her own movie. I mean, that's just, it's just a fact. Amelia Boynton, Annie Lee Cooper, you know, Coretta Scott King, every single scene you see them in, every time they're on screen, it was a struggle to get them there. And so I'm proud that they're there. Is it enough? Of course not. Is it the best I could do? Yes. And I just hope that folks, you know, it's easy to criticize. That's why now that I've kind of got to a certain place, I've stopped being as critical of folk because you really don't know the full story. And the fights, the struggle to get it to where it was. So thank you for recognizing that. And so I just felt like, you know, it might have been safer just to not have them there at all, as opposed to open yourself up to criticism for it not being enough. You know, maybe I should have doubled down on Coretta and made her fuller and then left the other 4 women out. But my thought is, let me get as many sisters in there as I can, even if there's just bits. And so those are just judgment calls that I made. But yeah, you know, the criticism, I tried to stay away from it a little bit, but I heard it. And I mean, the criticisms of not enough SNCC. Well, damn. I mean, SNCC wasn't on the page. Like, there was no SNCC. SNCC wasn't included. You know what I mean? No one was thinking nothing about SNCC. No one thinking nothing about Malcolm. None of that stuff was in there. And so when you're working in 2 hours and you're trying to, you know, bring in as much of what you know should be there as possible, you're dragging it in and you're fighting the whole way. You know, that's what it ultimately was. So.
Now, there are also these overt gestures. When those officers pull those gas masks over their face, I mean, this happens, you know, this film comes out just a couple of months after Ferguson. So how was that intentional? Did that moment influence your filmmaking? Were you trying to make a gesture to this political moment, and if so, what was that gesture?
No, we had shot it all already.
Oh, wow.
Michael Brown was murdered while we were in the editing room.
Wow.
So we had already shot everything. So the eerie similarities are just proof of the continuum that we're on. The fact that these gestures, the fact that I was watching Ferguson on cable news, and the cops there were saying some of the very same things, the very same language, the very same, not even demeanor, same language, outside agitators, and just the same stuff. It's like, wow, is there a handbook of bad cop handbook that's been passed down from generation to generation? Apparently so, because it's just these ghosts of the past really were inserting themselves into our reality today, and so yeah, it's none of that was purposeful. I mean, we had already shot and had edited Bloody Sunday when Ferguson went down. So yeah, just it was all just this energy that was coming back into the piece.
So we're rushing to a close. There's so many more things to say, but I want to ask you before we open up for questions for folks to talk back. So what's next? What exciting things do you have next? So I've heard about a TV show that you're working with on OWN and a new pilot. So one, what things are next? But also, do you have like a dream project that you just really want to do that we should be looking out for?
What's next is I'm really interested in exploring television. You have a lot of really beautiful filmmakers that are moving to television, auteurs who, like David Fincher and Steve McQueen and Jill Soloway, and a lot of Steven Soderbergh, a lot of great people going to TV, Cary Fukunaga, because you get to tell the long story. Instead of 2 hours, you get 13 hours, 13 episodes. So that's attractive for a storyteller. So venturing into that, just also never want to be in a place where someone can tell me no. So to diversify and to be able to do TV and film and virtual reality and stage plays and whatever I want to do, that I can always kind of be able to duck and move and always tell stories. So TV is my current exploration. I kind of got hooked with Scandal. I really liked it.
Yes.
And so So yeah, did a pilot. We'll see if CBS picks it up. Don't know if they will, but I've got a straight to series order on OWN. It's nice when your friend owns a network. It's just, it comes in handy. And so she says, hey, come over here and make something. So we're going to make something very not normal TV over there.
Okay.
Yeah. So that'll be fun. And then beyond that, I've got a film that I'm working on with David Oyelowo, who played Dr. King so beautifully, a dear friend of mine. We're making a film. It's a love story and a murder mystery that happens during the time of Katrina. And so that's the next film. And lots of other films. I'm getting, offers for interesting things. Lots of period pieces.
Do you think you'll do historical film again?
I won't say hell no. Not in a while. Not for a while.
Okay.
Not for a while.
Yeah.
But anyway, Dream Project is something in the far future.
Okay.
Far future project, like some Octavia
some
Butler,
Butler.
or
Yes.
something where we can imagine ahead is of interest.
You know what? Before we open up for questions, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you this one question. Like, so all your politics are sort of really implicit, but like, since we're in women's and gender studies space, how do you think about feminist politics in your work? Do they sort of? I mean, I don't ever anticipate seeing a character wearing an "I am a feminist" T-shirt, but that care about women is so central that I don't know how else to call that, but a feminist ethic. Is that what you call it?
Absolutely, it's top of mind every day, and everything that I do. So yes.
Awesome. All right, we're going to take some questions.
It's a good-looking audience. It's interesting. You don't see yourself, but the colors are all nice. Aww. Lots of different age groups, smiles, interesting outfits.
Yes. So do we have mics, or how we're gonna, or do you just want me to facilitate? Okay. Come on. Yeah. We have a couple questions from our virtual audience, right? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Hillary. I'm a social media intern with the Institute for Women's Leadership here. And I wanted to ask a question that someone had tweeted in. And they asked, how do you get to the level where people will support the constant movement of your films?
To the level where people will support the constant movement of it. I'm not sure I totally understand the question. What do you think? What does it mean?
So where it's not a hustle to get folks to pay attention, so that sort of shift from not having to hustle so hard.
How do I get to the level? I don't know. I mean, from I Will Follow is a film I made for $50,000. I was saving for a house. My mother was like, I had owned a house when I was 27. And I was like, what, houses were $30,000 then? And she was like, yes, but you should own a home. And she was just on me. So I started saving up for a house. And I got $50,000 for a down payment, and then I went and made a film with it. Whoa. and it worked out, but at the moment it wasn't a good look with moms. But that film was so small, and it was all just very grass-rooted in the way that we made it and the way that we told people about it, to the point that I was at no level for support, yet sisters would come out of a conference to go see this small little film that was barely playing for a weekend someplace. So I think, it's less about how to garner support and more about the work, because if the work is sound and if the work is true, you will find people who want to support it. If the work is hollow and you're doing it just to do it because you want to make a film and it's time to make a film, I think, it starts to get in a shaky place. But, I was so passionate about making it and having people see it, that even though it was super small, it found an audience. So I don't think you have to be in a certain position to have that support. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I got asked the question a lot about, during Selma about, they were so great back then. they were so great, and just everyone now is just not great. It's basically the sentiment, all over the junket and all over the world, and these junkets around the world. It's like, why can't we be like them then? But people need to understand it's a different time and different tools and different tactics. And I think that technology and social media and the cameras that we all have in our pockets, I mean, if they had them then, they would have been using them like we're using them now. I mean, they are in use, and they are a part of this current movement. And so, yes, I think the fact that, I mean, as a filmmaker, every single person right now can take video. I mean, just the thought of that. I mean, you're talking about people who weren't allowed to have a pen. We weren't allowed to write words on paper. Now we have a camera to amplify whatever's going on, whatever injustice you see. I mean, that is powerful, and we're seeing the power of it. And so, as a filmmaker, wrestling with how to put these images on the big screen and seeing just a whole community, a whole nation that now can put images on any screen right at this moment. I mean, that is a forwarding of where we were, and certainly it should be included in the activism. So I don't know if it has anything to do with me being visible. It doesn't. But I am talking about people using that camera in their pocket and just knowing that that is also a weapon against the things that we're fighting against. Yeah, I was a 7th director. It's very flattering. I always say at that point they were just like, "Lady, do you want to give this a try?" Because nobody else can just. And yeah, it was David Oyelowo. He was cast previously as Dr. King by Lee Daniels, who was the 6th director. And when Lee Daniels went off to do The Butler, David really still wanted to do Selma, and so he really pitched the producers that were on board at the time, Oprah wasn't involved, to take a look at me. He basically got me the job. I don't pitch and I don't beg for jobs, so they basically called me and said, "Hey, he thinks you might be able to do this. Do you think you can do something with it?" So I started working with it, rewrote the script, and at the time that I was starting to rewrite the script, he had also asked Oprah if she would come on board, and she had seen Middle of Nowhere. And so I gotten to know her a little bit, but I was still in the awkward Oprah phase. It's phases. So the first year of knowing her, you act like a hot mess. Some people get over that sooner than others. Mine was a full 12 months of just awkward black girl. Just like, shout out to Issa Rae, like really, really bad. Like I don't even know how she wanted to continue to be around me. And then so in the second year is when she was invited to do Selma by David, and she came on board. And then the third year we made Selma together. And now we're making more things together. But yeah, she came on after me, and I came on after David, and we're here because of David Oyelowo, a brother who advocated for a black woman filmmaker taking over the reins of this film and made it so. He made them hire me, so I'm grateful to him. Yes, there's some people that wanted it in and some people that didn't. For me, I thought it was, it wasn't, I didn't think it was. The only way that I really wanted to get involved with the project, I mean, now we can look back and say, oh, a movie about Dr. King and Selma. But up until that point, there had never been a major motion picture with Dr. King at the center. So to kind of think about how to do that, was a big, big puzzle, and that's part of the reason why there were 6 directors before me. But for me, my approach was to say, okay, what do I not like about civil rights dramas that I've seen before? This patina of respectability that's across all of the characters. Everything's brightly lit like you're in a supermarket and you know the end, it's going to be okay. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, that's not the civil rights movement I read and studied. What is this movie, And so I think, for me, it was really about deconstructing King, and it wasn't about making anything up about him. It was just really trying to get to the root of who he was as a man. And we know that whatever the rumored infidelities, the extracurricular activities, whatever you want to call it, is a part of the conversation about him. So I felt it was disingenuous not to engage in that. The question is how. Previous filmmakers, other scripts, wanted to get in the bedroom with him. You know what I mean? Like, I was reading one script, I was like, what? I don't want to see him do this. Another one wanted him to flirt with the ladies. And I was just like, you know what? As a black woman, I want to know what Coretta said when you came home, actually. That's what I'm trying to understand. How did that go? And so, so it was just about looking at it from my point of view and just in the rewrite trying to figure out what interested me about that part of it. But it was all from a place of let him be a man. And let's not try to keep him a marble statue or a stamp or a holiday or all of the things that he's become. She was talking about Selma for Students. First of all, she says she follows me on Twitter at AvaETC on Twitter, or direct her on Instagram. But then she said about Selma for Students, which is this amazing campaign. Black business leaders started it. It wasn't a Paramount Pictures thing. Paramount Pictures leaned into it, and it was fantastic. But it was really these really wealthy black people in New York who had seen an early screening of Selma and decided, wow, more people should see this. Students should see this. Young people should see it. So they one day, like on a couple phone calls, they put together, I don't know, $270,000, and they were able to have 27,000 New York 7th and 8th graders be able to see the film, and it was lovely, and we thought it was a big deal, and put out the press release, and it was fantastic. And then it kind of became contagious, and similar people in Atlanta and Detroit and Houston and LA and Oakland started to do the same thing, to the point that now 300,000 students have seen the film for free. All you had to do was go to your local theater with your ID, and these people would pay for it. It was all generated independently by the black business community, all separate communities around the country. And so that's 300,000 people during the theatrical release, had never been done, unprecedented, all independent. And now Paramount Pictures is kind of picking up on that and really paying it forward by giving every high school in the country a DVD of Selma. So that, we just announced that at the UN yesterday, which is very cool. You know, as a filmmaker, you know, when we're struggling on set to make these images and we're doing our thing, you never think that something you make is going to be able to resonate in that way. So thanks for asking the question. I made my first film when I was 38, first feature film when I was 38. So that's like ancient in movie terms. You know, I was at Sundance, my first time at Sundance as a filmmaker with like other guys in my category, like, you know, just young guys straight out of NYU with the jeans and the t-shirt, like doing the Spielberg, you know, and I'm like, fully grown black woman, you know, very, very different. And so when I jumped from one thing into another, it wasn't even jumping into something that was comfortable. It was very public. It was very different, very foreign to anything that I thought I could do. I just had something I wanted to say and decided to go for it. And all I can say about that is, you know, part of the reason why I was able to do it was because I did it gradually, with progression. So often when you think of switching or getting into something new, we feel like it has to be all or nothing, and it has to all happen right now. You know, I made a short first, and then I studied a little bit more, and then I dipped my toe in this, and then eventually I worked up to it so that I didn't have to be all in the switch. And so when I really interrogate how I made the switch from one total career to another, it was allowing myself to do it little by little. Because I even know within myself, you just want it. You just want to do it. And so it's like, how do I quit my job? How do I do this? What do I do with this? It's like you're overthinking it. Just take it a little step and a little bit step and a little step, and you'll find that you're there. So that would be my advice: is just take it slow and stay on the course. I don't know. I don't know. I've put out a couple of shorts online. I like the idea of free content, so just having things be free online, but you have to be either a whippersnapper like Issa, or you have to be, you know, willing to crowdfund, which is just a little tough for me to do, or you have to be independently wealthy. I'm neither of the three of those things. So, but I do like the idea, like when Prada, you know, gave me some money to make something, or Fashion Fair gave me some money to make something, just, you know, making it free online and just, you know, allowing community to build around it. But yes, I'm interested in telling stories on all kinds of platforms. Right now I'm super interested in television, also dabbling a little bit, like I said, in virtual reality. I'm really, really interested in that. You know, right now you guys are like, VR, what is that? In 3 years, everyone's going to have a headset. You're going to be watching TV in your glasses. I've seen it. It's amazing, right? And you're going to be able to move and like be the character. It's nuts. You'll remember. You'll say she said it, and you'll say, right now you're like she's tripping, but trust me, okay. And so yeah, definitely web is interested. And you had asked how you know we support other. I always find that question to be a little foreign. Like, how am I going to support people doing their thing? I'm going to support them by watching their work, and I'm going to support them by telling people about it, and I'm going to support them by, you know, answering any questions I have about it. Oprah gets that all the time. How are you going to support me? And she'd be like, I'm going to say, go get them. You know what I mean? Like how? I don't know. But I support in however way I can that feels right at the time. The question is about black women's roles in film and television for actresses, and there are roles. There are black women writers and directors of all kinds making things independently. It's just not at the local movie theater, and it's not on every television network. But it's out there. So there are roles, I would say, for a black woman actress to link up with black women storytellers. You know what I mean? I mean, there's so many scripts out there, so many sisters who are writing, wanting to direct on the shorts level, the documentary level, on the narrative level. I think it's like that. I talked about progression and gradual thing. We can't have the big movie right off. If you're truly an actor, you're truly an artist, a cinematic artist, then you've got to be studying and honing your craft and doing it gradually so that eventually you are able to, matriculate, is that the right use of the word? Yes. Up to, ask my friend who's a scholar, up to the roles you dream of, but you just have to begin at where you are. And so I guarantee you there's someone here who's written something. I guarantee you there's someone here who can borrow a camera and make something, and it's just beginning to work on the craft.
Thank you, Ava.
Thank you so much. Really great. I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, that's sweet. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We're going to have, come on.
Good afternoon. My name is Abena Busia, and I'm the chair of the Department of Women's and Gender Studies. And though it's a privilege to be here, I feel heartbroken that I'm the person standing up to say y'all gotta go. But I would like to begin by thanking once again Ricky Angelidis and her family. For those of us who have devoted our lives to working in great public research institutions, it is always wonderful when people care enough to endow anything in a public institution. And this lecture series is just unbelievable. So thank you very much. That is your privilege. And thank you to everybody who made this possible and to all of you who are here. The Institute for Women's Leadership and those of us, all these organizations in the consortium, we do a lot of things. We want to see you at every public thing we do. Okay, come and find us. We are at 160 and 162 Riders Lane on the edge of the Douglas campus, going towards Sears. You all know where Sears is, so if you can get to Sears, you can find us. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you especially. This has been such a privilege. And you go with our blessings, and to know you've got a claque that is going to follow you. I'm old-fashioned. I believe in following physically, but people will be tweeting and whatever, and letting everybody know you're there. And we will keep an eye out on you. Thank you so much, everybody.
One last thing. I just need to give a special shout out to Professor Deborah Gray White, who stepped up and gave us some additional support to make this possible. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Woo! I just want to say before you go, thank you to all of the scholars who allowed me to be here. Thank you to your family for endowing this really special. I kind of was freaked out when they said Gloria Steinem was the last one. I was like, that's something, yeah, I shouldn't be the follow-up. But I just want to tell you what it means to me to see you all here. You took time out of your day, you came, you sat, you participated, you smiled at me. You listened to me, you asked me questions. I don't take that for granted at all. So when you go to watch the work of an artist, when you go to watch our work, I just want to communicate how much it means. I mean, most of us do not take that for granted. We know that. We don't take it for granted. at all. So anyway, I take this energy with me. I thank you so much. Have a great afternoon. Thanks a lot.